What's up guys and welcome to my Firefly buffed guide. Firefly is one of the 4 characters receiving a buff in the 4.2 update, and in this video I'm taking you over everything you do need to know, including her updated kit, best Lightcones, best Relic sets and ornaments, and also the stats you want to run for Mainstats and Substats, and finally some general team building for her. Do note the background footage is unbuffed Firefly, as I do have to record this before the update comes out, and I'm a pleb without the creator experience server, so I have to use what I have available. Stuck grinding in Honkai Star Rail? Need Stellar Jades fast? We've got you covered. Head over to U7 Buy, your ultimate gaming hub for save fast and cheap in-game top-ups. Whether it's Star Rail or your other favorite games, U7 delivers instantly and players love it. Check out their Trustpilot reviews, they're actually top ranked. On the Honkai Star Rail direct top-up page, you can recharge your account in seconds. For example, 8080 Honorific shards cost $99.99 in the official store, but on U7 Buy, you can see here it's way cheaper. Just pick your server, enter UID, pay securely, and boom, your account is instantly loaded. Want extra savings? Use code PRETSR at checkout for 5% off, perfect for last minute pulls, battle passes, or surprising a friend. And here's a bonus. If you spend $80 a month on U7 Buy, you can grab the Honkai Star Rail Express Pass for only 1 cent, which is nearly free. Click on the link in my description, recharge fast, save more, and keep blazing those trails. Firefly's basic attack does damage based off Sab's attack to a designated enemy. Her skill will consume 40% of her max HP and regenerate a fixed amount of energy equal to 60% of max energy, then deals fire damage based off Sab's attack, and using the skill will advance this unit's next action by 25%. Her ultimate will enter the complete combustion state, which will advance the unit's action by 100% and gains an enhanced basic attack and an enhanced skill. In that state, this unit's speed will be increased by 60, and using enhanced basic attack or skill will increase the unit's break efficiency by 50%, and increase break damage dealt by Sab to enemy targets by 20% until the current attack ends. A countdown timer for the complete combustion state will be in the action order bar, and the timer has a fixed speed of 70. Sab cannot use ultimate while in complete combustion. The enhanced basic attack restores HP by an amount equal to 20% of this unit's max HP, then deals fire damage based off Sab's attack to a designated enemy, and the enhanced skill will also restore HP by an amount equal to 25% of this unit's max HP, add fire weakness to all the targets you do attack for 2 turns, and then will deal fire damage equal to 0.2 times break effect plus 200% of Sab's attack to the main target, and fire damage equal to 0.1 times break effect plus 100% of Sab's attack to adjusted targets. The break effect taken into calculation is capped at 360%. Firefly's talent will lower the damage she receives the lower her HP is. HP being 20% or lower will make the damage reduction reach its maximum effect of reducing up to 40% damage. In complete combustion, the damage reduction will always be at max effect and also increase effect res by 30%. If energy is lower than 50% when battle begins, regenerates energy to 50%, and reaching maximum energy will dispel all debuffs on this unit. Her technique will leap into the air and move freely for 5 seconds, which can be ended early by a plunging attack. When you plunge down, it will attack all enemies within a set area, where at the start of each wave, applies fire weakness to all enemies for 2 turns, and then does fire damage equal to 200% of Sab's attack to all targets. For her traces, her A2 will increase Sab's break effect by 25% in complete combustion, using enhanced basic attack or enhanced skill to inflict weakness break on a target. The complete combustion state countdown will be delayed by 10%, that can trigger up to a maximum of 3 times during each complete combustion state. Her A4 will allow her to gain a super break conversion based on the amount of break effect you do have in complete combustion. Attacking a weakness broken enemy with 150%/300% break effect will convert the toughness reduction of the attack into 1 instance of 100%/150% super break damage. And her A6 will be for every 10 points of Sab's attack that exceeds 1800, increases this unit's break effect by 0.8%. Finally, for her Eidolons, her E1 will ignore 50% of the target's defense when using enhanced skill and will no longer consume skill points when using enhanced skill. E2 makes it to where while in complete combustion, using enhanced basic attack or enhanced skill to defeat or break an enemy target will grant Sab an extra turn. The effect only triggers 1 time per turn, and the trigger count resets at the start of Sab's turn. Her E4 will increase her effect res by 50% in complete combustion, and her E6 in complete combustion, Sab's fire res pen increases by 20%, and enhanced basic attack or skill will increase weakness break efficiency by 50%. For her best Lightcones, the one tied for her best is going to be Phaidon's Lightcone, due to it giving the wearer a 12 base speed increase and also an 18% defense ignore. Last part is completely useless, you practically just ignore that entirely. Another reason is leveling this up has one of, if not the highest base attack in the game, which is really good for her actual attack conversion to break effect, which actually overall gives you more break effect as opposed to her signature. Besides that, looking at the actual effects, the base speed is increased. The base speed increase is really good, because not only does it make her a lot easier for her speed requirements, to hit even higher speed requirements, maybe allowing you to get more turns or quicker turns, especially paired alongside other things on the team, such as someone holding dance, also makes speed percentage buffs even more powerful. A lot of reasons why the base speed increase is very good, and it's also practically just an unconditional 18% defense ignore if you were not already overcapped, and this helped you either overcap or get really close to 100%. That further sets apart this Lightcone as opposed to her signature, just because that extra defense ignore is very good, especially when you're getting above 75%, because that's when the increase becomes very big. Of course, with how much access break does have to defense ignore / shred, depending on your team and investment, that could definitely change, but if this is a reason it helps you get to 100% or at least close to it as opposed to anything else, then that makes this Lightcone even stronger, which actually makes this overall the best option you can use. Of course, the other best would be her own signature, providing 60% break effect. Also, the wearer dealing break damage to an enemy will make them inflicted with rounded for 2 turns, and targets with rounded will receive 24% increased break damage from the wearer, and their speed will be lowered by 20%. So the extra break effect stick is nice, since that's one of the biggest stats you want to have. And also, instead of having a lot more break effect as opposed to Finon's Lightcone with its high base attack, instead you're getting break damage here, which is one of the few sources to also increase break damage, since you're quite literally making them take more damage. However, nowadays there's a lot of sources of break damage on that team as well, so there's a chance that this could become a little oversaturated, which is why it's a bit less desirable, but nonetheless it is still going to be an increase. This also ties into the natural sustainless playstyle of break even more by lowering enemy speed by 20% if they have rounded, so they recover slower. Unfortunately, that would also mean you would actually get the break proc less, since they would not act fast enough to recover their actual toughness and so on and so forth. But with them staying broken longer, you would be able to keep them under the ability to get the full super break conversion as opposed to just a point of it. From something like Dahlia allowing you to super break without fully breaking enemies, you still want to break to get the biggest damage and have them broken to get the best conversion, but still this could help them prolong that. However, just not being able to break them as often for the biggest hit is a little unfortunate. So this Lightcone is still very good on her. It's her other best if you don't have Finon's Lightcone. Other than that, you can use the Herda Shop Lightcone as well, providing 8% attack when the wearer attacks. That stacks up to 4 times, and inflicting a weakness break will increase damage down for the wearer by 12%, and at S5 it is 16% attack. That stacks up to 4 times and 24% damage when breaking a weakness. So it gives you up to a 64% attack increase, which is going to be very good for the trace conversion. That's really it. The 24% damage it gives is really not going to do that much. You're mainly just looking at it for the big conversion, and also the fact that this is a free-to-play Lightcone you can get that does work well on her. So if you don't have the Finon Lightcone or her signature, then you can very much use this. Past those, the only other option would be the Indelible Promise Lightcone with a 28% break effect increase. The other part gives crit rate, but you just ignore that entirely as crit is not the focus on this team. At S5, it's 56% break effect. That's it. It just gives you a break effect stick that is almost as good as her signature. Also, what's really funny is this is the same base attack as her actual signature when that one is fully leveled. So you're almost getting the same amount of break effect. Of course, the signature provides the extra 4% and then also its own break damage dealt and making enemies slower, while this is just a completely useless thing, but it still gives you almost as much break effect as her signature. Relic sets have not changed. You still just want to run 4-piece Iron Cavalry, 2-piece giving 16% break effect, and the 4-piece giving 10% defense ignore for break damage dealt with 150% or higher break effect, and 250% or higher break effect will make super break damage dealt to the enemy and just ignore 50% of their defense. So one of the biggest ways to increase break damage is getting as much defense ignore you can get on your break characters, and this 4-piece allows you to get up to a 25% defense ignore, which is very, very good. And 2-piece also gives you break effect, so that's good for building her and also overall break damage. There's really not any other 4-piece you want to use. That is really the only 4-piece you want to use, especially nowadays. It's going to give you the best damage and it is the only one you want to use. However, if you are farming for it and you for some reason happen to have a 4-piece thief set laying around, you can use that instead. Same 2-piece. 4-piece provides an extra 16%, and when the wearer inflicts weakness break on an enemy, regenerates 3 energy. Significantly worse, it is the equivalent of running 2-piece break with also the ability to get an extra 3 energy, which is completely worthless when Firefly is in complete combustion anyways, so it's the equivalent of running 2-piece 2-piece. Only if you just happen to have really good pieces of that, then you can do that. And if you really have to do 2-piece 2-piece, of course 2-piece break and 2-piece breaks, so thief and also 2-piece iron cavalry or 2-piece watchmaker, since that also does have the break effect 2-piece. You can do 2-piece of that or do 2-piece speed as well if you want to make it easier to build her speed requirement. So 2-piece hacker space, 2-piece relieved ordeal, warrior goddess, or the diviner 2-pieces. For Planar ornaments, this is of course not changed. The best one is forge, as it will be for any break character with the requirement 6% speed or a 40% break effect increase when attacking someone with fire weakness for 1 turn, which is going to be quite literally always, because Firefly can implant fire weakness. The Dahlia on her teams, which she always is going to be on, also implants fire weakness. You never will not have fire weakness on an enemy being attacked, so you practically just have permanent 40% break effect increase alongside the extra speed increase. This is usually where I'd say if you don't have that, you can use Talia, but I don't really recommend doing that because it's just worse than Forge. 4% less break effect and no speed, but Forge is really just unconditional with Firefly pretty much. So there is really no reason to use Talia unless you just happen to have Talia for some reason and no Forge pieces, but ideally in that case you would get Forge right away. Forge is really the only one you want to use on Firefly always. For the main stats on the relics, for the body you want to run attack percent, for the feet you want speed, for the orb you want attack percent, and for the link rope you want break effect. For the substats, first your priority is going to be speed. The baseline is going to be around 155 speed and no lower than 150. This ensures you to get an extra action in MLC's first cycle, and has kind of been the thing you always wanted to build Firefly with. That still does hold true. You're not just limited to aiming around that 155 range though, you can go much higher. Once you do have 155, you can still aim for upwards of 160 to even 170s, which becomes more and more valuable if people on your team are holding Dance as Dads, or if you have E2 Fugue, so on and so forth. But that around 150 speed goal is going to be your bare minimum. That is going to be your break effect goal, ensuring you do hit 360% break effect when you are in complete combustion. 360% break effect in complete combustion would mean you are maxing out her trace, which is at 300% for the full 150% super break conversion. You're maxing out Iron Cavalry's requirement, which is 250%, and also for her actual enhanced skill, which is capped at 360% anyways. That is going to be your bare minimum goal. It's very easy on a well-built Firefly, especially with all the break buffs from the Dahlia, Fugue, and then depending on if you have Harmony MC, so on and so forth. Just be sure you have 360% break effect in the complete combustion state, so in battle. That is also non-negotiable. So 155 is speed, and 360% break effect in battle in complete combustion is going to be your goal. So in that case, you are focusing on break effect rolls and also even attack/attack percent rolls, since remember that does get converted. Of course, actually getting the break rolls are going to be better than attack, since attack gets converted at a lesser extent. But still, any attack roll is not going to be wasted. Once you go above 1800, which is very easy, every 10 points is going to give you break effect with no effective limit. So just aim for as much attack as you can. Again, around 155 speed bare minimum, and then in complete combustion around 360% break effect. That is going to be your bare minimum goals. Speed specifically, once you do hit those requirements, aim for as much as you can. Hyperspeed 170 plus. If you have Fine Odds Lightcone, that makes that even easier. Just getting a bunch of speed as much as possible, especially combining it with Death Set Zets and so on and so forth, is going to be ideal to get the best amount of turns, and also pairs very well, especially if you do have Firefly E2. Now for some team building. Even after post buff, and the whole goal was to make her after her buffs be less reliant on this character, it doesn't change the fact that the biggest break teammate you want to run is the Dahlia. No matter the break unit, if it is a break team, the Dahlia wants to be there. She is a non-negotiable teammate and will always be the best option to have. The last two slots are a little more flexible, and Firefly and break in general is better played sustainless, especially with the nature of making enemies act less because you're breaking them so they can't really act. But for a third slot, usually it would go to someone like Fugue. Fugue is good in this spot, especially if you do have E1. At E1, she is usually always a definitive upgrade. At E0, she is a lot more replaceable, but in general, she is an option you would use. And then the last slot, if you are doing sustainless, which you should be for the most part, would go to another teammate that can benefit this team and Firefly specifically. Common options are Ruan Mei. She still works fine in that last slot. But personally, when it comes to this team, I like using Harmony MC. So Harmony MC would be the one I would recommend. If you really do need to run sustainless, then instead of that fourth slot being a support, you could put a break support such as Linkshell or Gallagher. For Fugue replacement specifically, you could use the character I did mention, so a Harmony MC in that slot, or Ruan Mei. Those are the main ones you would be alternating between, so a team could look like this instead. Or you could even use Bronya. Bronya actually does work quite well, especially with her E2, with setups when it comes to Firefly, but do be sure you are mindful of your speed tuning, and this team would require a lot more thinking, just so your rotations do play out right. If you don't have the Dahlia, then you would have to run a team that kind of looks like this. It's going to be significantly worse than any option with the Dahlia, but this is how you'd kind of go about it if you don't have the Dahlia. Again, if you really need a sustain for this kind of team, then you would sub out mainly either Ruan Mei or Fugue. If your Fugue is E0 in this team specifically, I would recommend replacing Fugue just because you would have no weakness break efficiency otherwise. So the sustain slot would just go to Fugue. You put, again, Link Show or Gallagher. And that is the full buffed Firefly guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, drop a like and be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell icon for future videos like this along with all the tips to start our content. And I'll see you later. Peace out.